So first up, if I could ask Suri Ratnatunga to join me, who is the Senior Director of Community and Support at Vimeo.
Thank you. Well done on the last name pronunciation. Is this my little clicker? Okay, great. Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Suri, and I'm the Senior Director of Community and Support at Vimeo, and I'm going to talk to you about what it means to scale up and run a world-class support organization. All right, so you're going to get a really good look under the hood of Vimeo today. I'll share some Vimeo support stats to lend some credibility to the advice I'll be giving later on. Then I'll talk to you about how the Vimeo business has grown bigger and more complex in the 4 years I've been at the company. Obviously, you don't need to scale a support organization to excel globally if your business isn't excelling globally as well. And then after all that context, I'll get into the heart of my presentation, Vimeo's principles for scaling customer support, which honestly rely on empowering our agents. But before I jump in, I want to share a story about my first job. I'll refer to it throughout my presentation because it really shaped my way of thinking as a leader. So right after college, I was the first hire after the founders at a startup called SideTour. It was essentially what Airbnb Experiences is today, small events hosted by a local, except we did not have Airbnb's existing community to jumpstart our business. And so, yeah, I was put in charge of all of communications. So if you imagine a tequila tasting event, I would go out, I would find the bartender who specialized in tequila. I would sell her on becoming a host. I'd gather all the details, write up a description, add it to our site. Then I'd pitch New York City blogs about covering that event. The day before, I'd personally email a reminder to all the guests and the host, and the day up, I would follow up to get their feedback. So, like any startup, we had to be ruthless about where we invested our headcount and our dev resources, which meant I was left doing a lot of things that should have probably been done by multiple people or performed by a system. During, the best moments, I felt so proud of the key role I was playing in keeping our little startup alive. But during the not so great moments, I felt really overwhelmed and stretched thin by the things I had to do and follow up on and check in on a daily basis. And when I inevitably missed something, I not only felt terrible, but I also knew I was hurting the business. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't, that first job was amazing. I learned so much from it. I wouldn't trade anything for that experience. But it also taught me something about not being set up for success. All right, now we'll talk about Vimeo. So Vimeo's mission is to be an end-to-end video platform for creators and businesses. We develop tools for you to securely host, distribute, and monetize your videos online. And because we don't serve ads in your videos, we make money by selling subscription plans with our tools and video storage that start at 10 euros a month and go all the way up to 70 euros a month. We were actually founded around the same time as YouTube and are often compared to them. So people tend to think of us as a viewing destination and a SaaS company, which is why we recently ran this brand campaign in major cities across the US to raise awareness about our awesome tools. So here are some stats about the business and my team. So we have 90 million users, and actually 50% of them exist outside the US. We have 1 million paying subscribers, and they usually pay to stay on our platform for about 5 years. And this user base translates into over 100,000 tickets a quarter. Our main channel for support, like many of you, is email, but we also offer chat support and phone support to our top paying customers. We're headquartered in New York, but those yellow dots you see on the map are every city where we have support agents. And thanks to this global support team, we maintain first reply and next reply response times of under an hour, and that's 24/7 for all of our paying customers. And this results in a pretty cool 95% CSAT. So obviously a company like this does not scale overnight. And one of the ways I like to think about the complexity of the Vimeo business is by breaking it down into internal user-facing teams, the platforms that they work on, and then the user types on that platform. So thankfully, at Vimeo, the only user-facing team that I'm responsible for is support. But at one point or another, in my first job, I was doing all these other functions that Vimeo has dedicated teams for. For the first 10 years of our existence, we were just one platform. Vimeo was simply Vimeo. We were known as a place to host your videos without them being interrupted by ads. But in the pursuit of our mission to be the end-to-end video platform for creators, we've acquired 3 companies in the past 4 years. I wish I had the time to explain what each of them does in detail because they're all incredible in their own way. But I have to be brief. So VHX essentially was white label video monetization tools. Livestream is live video software. Mevo was its live video hardware camera. And then Magisto, which is the latest one, is machine learning technology to simplify the video creation and editing process. So that's a lot of platforms. And we went from supporting this many user types to supporting this many user types. Each of them have their own use cases, their own bundle of features, and their own support challenges. So now with that context, here are the clean high-level stats again. I'm really thankful that back when we were just the core platform, my team developed some principles for scaling support that have served us as Vimeo's extended its reach across the world. And now we'll jump into them. Develop and deepen specialized roles. So this principle is all about support folks feeling like they're experts at what they do and not feeling stretched thin. So I was doing a lot of different things at my first job, and I was working really, really hard, but I never felt particularly good at any one thing. So in the same way that communications at an early startup should evolve into separate functions for support and marketing and PR and sales and account management at a real business, your support team should evolve from a group of people who do roughly the same thing and work independently into a real team of people with specific responsibilities who collaborate frequently together. And I'll go into how we did this at Vimeo. So almost every support organization starts like this. It's a handful of generalists, and usually you have engineers handling like the more complex support tickets. At some point, we realized not everyone in support is great at knowing when and how to escalate things to engineering. And it was important for our customers that their advocates in support maintained a really good relationship with engineers. So we built go-betweens. We called them comm devs or community developers. They were focused on taking technical escalations from the rest of the team, rigorously qualifying them, and then sharing the necessary details with an engineer to review and fix. And then soon we realized we needed other escalation teams to liaise with other departments at Vimeo. Unfortunately, not everyone plays nice on the internet, so we created a trust and safety team that works really closely with legal to enforce our guidelines. And as a SaaS company, it was important for us to have billing specialists who could work well with finance. We didn't think about it this way at the time, but essentially we were creating these product specialists who really knew the Vimeo platform and these subject matter specialists who really understood certain Vimeo policies. At around the same time, we decided to start outsourcing our tier 1 generalist team. As I mentioned earlier, 50% of Vimeo's users are outside the US, and so the need for overnight support increased. Outsourcing gave us more geographic flexibility, which is when we started hiring people in the EU and in Australia. But outsourcing also created new problems. The tier 2 teams that specialized in the product and the subject matter were having a hard time balancing their escalation queues with creating documentation for our help center and training our tier 1 team. And those escalations from tier 1 were often like too frequent. They were relying on outdated documentation and they were relying on outdated documentation, and they didn't work in the same place or at the same time as the tier 2 team to be able to ask them questions. Around this point, we established our operations team. So there were now dedicated owners for training, quality control, and documentation that were roles that were previously shared across everyone on the HQ support team. And this was transformational. It basically meant that everyone on our tier 1 team and our tier 2 team could focus on what they do best, helping Vimeo's customers. So now for any new product launch, the tier 2 team support specialists pass along feature details to the documentation team. They're the ones who make sure the help center and our internal knowledge base articles about that feature are up to date in time for launch. And then the tier 1 team relies on that documentation to answer most of the customer support questions, with our quality control manager keeping a close eye. We got into this really nice structure, and then in the space of 16 months, we acquired 2 companies, Livestream and VHX. Their support folks were really fantastic. I mean, they were empathetic, they were hardworking, and they were knowledgeable. But they did everything. So that meant, one support ticket could be a simple password reset question, and then the next could be an enterprise customer needing to troubleshoot a complex API question. They had really familiar problems. Even though their platforms were also constantly changing, no one had the time to focus on improving documentation, workflows, or performance. But now that their platforms were a part of the Vimeo brand, their customers were now our customers. And so we all need to figure out how to make sure that the support that our customers received didn't vary dramatically based on which team a customer contacted or which agent answered their ticket. And so we tiered out their support. The existing support folks became the tier 2 product support specialists for their respective platforms. And we created these dedicated outsourced tier 1 teams who handled similar cases. Next, we extended the subject matter teams and the operations teams to resource all 3 platforms. For example, we migrated the Livestream and VHX support agents into our CRM Zendesk and rolled out some standardized workflows. Now, this was a tricky step to navigate because previously the Livestream and VHX agents were working really independently doing all these support functions. And while they definitely admitted to feeling overwhelmed from time to time, they also felt irreplaceable. And I really understood that. But sometimes I think folks confuse the importance of independence with ownership. There's a lot of ownership in my org. I often joke that for any given issue, I know exactly who to yell at. But even though Nina owns documentation on my team, doesn't mean she works in a silo. She collaborates often with the platform support specialist and the subject matter support specialist to be successful in her role of keeping all of our documentation up to date. And so, if you want best-in-class support, it's important to move from a group of people doing every function on a team just okay, to being a team where each person does only 1 or 2 things really, really well and collaborates with the other experts on your team to achieve your team's goals. Okay, 2, value every agent's time. This principle is all about driving efficiencies on the front lines and investing in elegant systems and simple processes instead of relying on an individual's work ethic or memory. And so, this is actually very similar to what Jody spoke about earlier with design thinking. We encourage our agents to speak up about their problems and not power through them, because any time you say for your agents is automatically passed along to your customers. So, like a lot of customer support organizations, we use Zendesk for a support CRM. This is actually a screenshot from our Zendesk. And so, whenever possible, we try and build solutions that mean that our agents never have to leave the Zendesk ticket view. It's where they write their replies to our customers, which is what we want to keep them focused on. I'm going to talk about 3 apps that save our agents time, and these were built by my operations team in collaboration based on the feedback of our agents. The first is this app that basically pulls in information from the Vimeo admin panel and summarizes it for the agent to reference. So all this information does exist in Vimeo, but you'd have to click through multiple pages. It would take a lot of time. And we built versions of this app for the Livestream and VHX teams as well. The second actually repackages information that already exists about the user in Zendesk, things like their previous tickets, their status, what the CSAT rating was, summarizes it in this sidebar for them to reference, giving them the complete context about a user's Vimeo support experience. Anyone can actually download this app from the Zendesk marketplace. It has 500 reviews. And then the last app I want to talk about is actually my favorite one that we've built. It's called SSAT. And so we noticed that the Google Doc that the Tier 2 team used to leave feedback on the escalations from the Tier 1 team was sort of like Yelp. It was only used by a few of the Tier 2 agents, and usually for the worst escalations. And we know how important feedback is, but it seems silly to force every Tier 2 agent to keep that Google Doc open and have their managers spot check whether they were using it. So instead, we developed an app that only appears in the Zendesk ticket view for Tier 2 agents, and in the same way that customers have the ability to rate the support that they receive, every tier 2 agent now has the ability to rate every escalation from tier 1 directly in the ticket. So this gave our customers, like our tier 1 agents, like a brand new metric for performance, escalation satisfaction. And it's pretty accurate because every single escalation is rated. This app has evolved a few times. Now tier 2 can select a general category for why the issue, was escalated poorly, and leave some notes for the tier 1 agent's manager to review. And actually today, the app collects more than just agent performance, and so we can capture information about why the issue had to be escalated at all. For example, if a tier 2 agent is the only team that has access to an internal tool, we might use that data in the future to advocate for that tier 1 agent to be given access to that tool as well. Okay, last principle is build your own solutions. Something that I remind my team about all the time is that we work at an ever-changing company. We have to solve the challenges that we're facing this month, because next month we will have new challenges. And to do so, you need to have the resources to be a self-sustaining team. It's not just about maintaining your current tools and workflows, it's about being ready to adapt quickly. It's exhausting to beg and borrow resources for every new project, and if you're a business that's on track to scale globally, it's going to keep evolving, perhaps in unexpected ways, and your support team needs to be empowered to keep up with it, or you risk disappointing your customers. So, lastly, here's the story of Mevo, the live video camera that we acquired with Livestream. They were very much run as a startup within Livestream, and when we integrated support teams, we inherited a bunch of outdated support processes that were built a few years ago. Now, we could have punted on fixing things. My engineer honestly had a bunch of other projects that we could have argued were more important or impacted more users. But in the end, I just didn't feel comfortable about being responsible for a system that I didn't build, that I didn't understand, and I couldn't improve. So it took a couple months to uncover all the different workflows that existed across multiple systems, and my operations team painstakingly cleaned it up, and we migrated the Mevo team into our Zendesk. We also used the migration as the opportunity to reset some other workflows, like centralizing all documentation about the camera in a single place for agents to reference. Now, 4 months after we completed that work, Mevo was actually spun off into its own business and sold back to its original creator, which is pretty cool, but every team that touched Mevo had exactly 2 weeks to hand over all operations. But because we had rebuilt the entire Mevo support system very recently, my team knew exactly what needed to be done to seamlessly transfer over support operations to a new company, and we had all the resources to do it on our own. If we didn't have the resources, I honestly don't know what would have happened. Product, engineering, marketing, they all had the same 2-week deadline. There was no way we were going to be able to borrow any of their resources. And then if we hadn't stuck to the principle of building our own solutions, well, even I know that the superstars on my operation team could not have done months worth of work in the space of 2 weeks. Okay, and so just to summarize, develop and deepen specialized roles in your team, move from individuals working independently, doing everything okay, to a team of experts collaborating on best-in-class projects. 2, value every agent's time, because saving on their time will be passed along to your customers. And 3, build your own solutions. Instead of begging for resources and only getting them when things are really bad, your support team should be trusted with the resources to continuously evolve to meet your customers' needs. And yeah, thank you. I'm always happy to talk about operationalizing support.